Good evening. We're going to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and followed by 15 seconds of silence to remind us that we're all here to work together for a just and peaceful society. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for attending this evening's special meeting about the mobile food vehicle ordinance. This is just going to be discussion only tonight. There will be no voting or no decisions made. Hopefully we will drum up something tonight so that we can vote tomorrow at our town council meeting. So, that said, before we begin our discussions, I wanted to preface a few things. The town council's responsibilities are to protect the safety, health, and maintenance of the town, its residents, and its businesses. And that's why this ordinance was written, to protect those entrepreneurs that made a financial commitment to have their business in a brick and mortar. And along with that came a lot of stipulations. They were to have certain parking spaces and ADA accessibility, and the list just goes on and on. And they had to adhere to that every day of the year. So you can clearly see why the ordinance was written, to protect businesses. So this ordinance has been put in our laps so that we can interpret, enforce, and change the verbiage of it, so hopefully our community can enjoy. That said, I will open the floor to any ideas you have to help us achieve that goal. Council, do you have anything to preface before we go on?
I just thank you all for being here. I appreciate you taking the time. I think that there'll be my guess is, and Terry, you can correct me, my guess is the invitation is that you share your perspectives and thoughts, things that are going right, things that are going wrong, it's kind of the struggles, conversation between council members to try to figure out where we are, because we may not all be in exactly the same place either. And so this is an open forum to try to figure out how we can move forward in a healthy way for the safety, protection of both citizens, traffic, and businesses. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Let's, at this time, the floor is open to the public comments and ideas. 3 minutes per person, and it's only on the mobile food vehicle ordinance only. We would like for you to come over to the podium and state your name and address. For any comments or ideas? Anybody have any ideas?
I say, don't be bashful. Somebody has to be first.
I am not afraid.
And as Terry mentioned, the purpose of this meeting is to get public input. I mean, that will certainly be considered in whatever's done.
So my name is Brett Poff, live at 130 East Main. What's the major point of contention with the current ordinance?
Well, I mean, I can jump in, take a stab at it. So the ordinance that was in place in 2021, there was an attempt last year to clarify it, fix it. I was on the council at the time. In my opinion, it also made it a lot more restrictive than the prior ordinance. I was on record not in favor of the changes to make it more restrictive. So, we had an ordinance. In 2021, it was made a little bit, I think, more restrictive. And again, in '23, there was an attempt to make it even more restrictive. And like I said, that didn't pass. But because it was kind of an open issue, this council didn't want to just ignore it, leave it lingering, good, bad, or indifferent. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions and, at least make a decision and move forward. So there have been no decisions at all. So, we're an open slate, open mind. We want to hear what people have to say and comments and thoughts, but there, and there are copies back there of both. Yeah.
I'm very well aware.
Okay, so if that helps at all, that's kind of the backdrop.
For me, it's a matter of, I don't know too much beyond, coming in this year. For me, there were, as we read it, knowing that it would come in front of us because the revisions kind of kept getting passed from the previous council to where we are now. But as I looked through the ordinance, there were a few things that stood out to me that I kind of underlined and marked as some curiosities of why they're in there and what we can do to kind of overcome some of those difficulties for food trucks, and see where it lies, right? So there's a number of issues that I found that I want to figure out how we can improve the system.
I'm the same way. We've been talking about this since probably a couple of meetings ago. We had it on our agenda March 6th to talk about, and nobody showed up. So we decided on March 6th to have a public meeting so we could get the public's input. Because we're not, like Bill and Ethan said, we're not going to make the right decision every time. But also in rewriting this or changing this to try to mold it to our community, we need the public's input. So if none of you, or if anybody doesn't follow the town page, I encourage you to get on the town page and follow it on social media, because we post that agenda on there. So if there's something on that agenda that you see that you want information on, or want to speak about, or have questions about, you're not going to know about it unless you come to the meetings and give your input to us. And we need that input, because we were elected here to run the town for the town's people. So without your input, we have to go out with decisions, that we discuss. So I strongly encourage everybody to follow the town page, and if you see something you want information on, come to the meetings.
Okay. Follow up, right?
Yeah.
What was the deal with the food truck that is no longer there?
Well, like I said, this got put in our laps, and for us to interpret, enforce, and then to change the verbiage, so it will, everybody would be happy for us to try it. And the previous discussions before us were focused on 6503 subsection F, which talks about the 48-hour period. And that it's really pretty vague verbiage. And so, but we kept reading, and subsection H talks about no mobile vehicle unit shall operate within 200 or 300 feet of any facade of a ground level establishment that also sells food or beverages. So that had not ever been enforced, and I think that's where all the confusion has come from. And so that's what we wanted the public here to help us, to help give us some ideas how we can go forward on this.
And also, jump right in also to add that the previous ordinance, without last year's changes, in and of itself prohibited that food truck from being where it was because it was within 200 feet of the subway. So, and I don't know when the application for the permit was submitted, if it indicated that it was going to be stationary at a specific location, If the application was worded that way, I believe that we would have looked at it, measured it, we would have never issued a permit. The other concern, I mean, it violates the ordinance that's on the books right now. So then legally, we had to make the decision, if you don't enforce an ordinance, and then let's say tomorrow, 6 food trucks come in, and you have a total of 7. If you tried to enforce an ordinance against any one that you didn't enforce uniformly against all, then you're gonna be in a bad position in a lawsuit. So we did have to take, perhaps a unpopular position while this ordinance is being amended and we're getting input, whatever we ultimately do, we couldn't ignore the ordinance that's on the books. So, that's why a letter was sent to the operator of that food truck. Just my personal opinion, I think of a food truck as a temporary thing. And, when the permit was issued for the food truck that was on Main Street, it's pretty clear that it wasn't a temporary thing. And it was there for a protracted time period. And so the 2023 amendments that didn't get passed, you couldn't be in the same place, no matter where it was, for more than 24 continuous, or 48 continuous hours. So that it wasn't a permanent thing, it was temporary. So again, that was kind of the rationale there, but we did have to enforce the ordinance that was on the books, because if we didn't, then if you don't enforce it, you can't enforce it ever later. So if that helps, that's what happened with the food truck that was there.
I think for me, some of the problems come with those unintended consequences. If you read the ordinance right now, I don't think that even those who wrote the ordinance intended some of the consequences that we may be experiencing. And so it's a matter of saying, okay, ordinances are meant to be changed and amended and adjusted as necessary as towns evolve and change. One of my observations was with the ordinance the way it is, there's literally no place a food truck could be on Main Street because of the 300-foot rule from any business that sells. Or parking. Right.
So,
go ahead.
To parking.
Yeah.
If you read on, what section is that? Section G, paragraph G.
Under 6503?
Yep.
Yep.
So, in essence, any town street, that town manager can go, nope,
Right.
which is really harsh. Like really harsh.
Well, and that's part of the reason for us to get everybody's input. What we know it needs work. Yeah, so there's several things in here, so that's definitely one of them we can.
And I would say is the old liquor store, it still contains its commercial zoning, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's an overlay on Main Street that even if you're in a residence, you could have certain
Okay.
businesses.
Then, if they sign a lease agreement, in essence, they're renting that property.
Yeah, but
It's
I
still-
think they would have to be inside the building.
What's the difference? It's still connected.
Because this is an ordinance, and
Yeah, I think your food truck ordinance would apply to a vehicle. And I'll go so far as not to just say a food truck that can be driven, but like a taco trailer. This ordinance, I think, would apply that you couldn't just pull up, unhook it, and leave it there, as written.
And I'll simply, if you look at the applicability in 6501, it talks about public and private. And so I think it speaks to, if you are designated as a food truck, that's what this ordinance pertains to.
So, me being the owner of my property, I have food trucks in the backyard. It's not being built yet. But as to Bill's point, what would cause me not to open up on my property?
Well, again, if it's a permanent, stationary,
And it's not.
right, so, but Each
Oh,
one
okay.
may be a little bit different.
Well, not necessarily, because they have a lease agreement with the property owner, and it's zone commercial.
Well, and I don't know if you're familiar, there were several council members where that very distinction was discussed in detail. It was noted that no other food truck ordinance has been found in the state of Indiana that has an exception for where the truck operator also has a lease. And not that that was the case here, but if that were an exception, I could see a creative person saying, okay, I'm gonna lease you a 10 by 10 square of my parking lot. But now you have a lease, so, you know, this ordinance doesn't apply. So, you know, again, we have to be careful. And I will also say, and Ethan said it best, it's unintended consequences. The way the ordinance was written has a lot of unintended consequences, but we also have to look at what's worst case scenario. And, you know, what I hope that our main street doesn't become is Washington Street on the east side of Indianapolis, where there might be a food truck in every third parking lot. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe, you know what, if we had a special event, you know, solar eclipse, there could be 10 food trucks, but they're gonna be there for a couple hours and leave. So,
I think the other aspect, as you think about, okay, that's a fair scenario. You food truck, you open up your food truck in your private. This ordinance kind of picks up after a business has gone through the health department and all the licensing, and then is licensed to serve to the public. And then within the town limits, if that licensed food truck is operating, then I think that's where this ordinance pumps in, right? I mean, if you set up a hot dog stand in your yard, you know, and you're serving to the public, the first issue would probably be the health department, you know, would be the thing that you would deal with. But if health department and all the licenses are signed off on, then the license or the application to have a license for a food truck comes into play, and we kind of go from there on the ordinance, if all those particular boxes are checked, and then how it's going to operate in the town limits. What is your suggestion? Do you have thoughts on what should or should not be kind of acceptable in town limits for food trucks?
Let me chew on that, because I ran a food truck and we were certified in 8 counties. So
Perfect.
let me chew on that one.
I'd love that thought.
Every municipality is very different.
Right.
and I don't wanna ever get to the point where, you know, a kid couldn't put out a card table on the front sidewalk and say, I'm selling lemonade.
Right. If you chew on it, and you chew on it beyond this moment,
Mhm.
shoot me an email.
Yep.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's John Kindred, live at 4231 South 800 West. What are the requirements to get a permit for a food truck in the city of Palestine? Are they handed to you when you get the permit, or you just hand the money and get a permit?
No, I give you a packet.
It's on the
There is a
website.
packet? Okay,
Yeah,
that-
it's
that's
on
what
our
I'm trying to
website.
understand.
And it's on the
Uh-huh.
website,
Okay.
and it tells you.
Step by step, the things you need.
Certificate of insurance
Or-
and information from the health department,
Okay,
so things like that.
so you have to turn in a packet of stuff?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, you want a copy of it?
yeah, I'm just asking. I'm just trying to figure out what's the requirement to get a permit for a food truck.
Right.
Is that packet clear to any individual, or English, Spanish, anything, for someone to understand it?
It's not translated.
Okay,
But like in Alberto's case, we sat at my desk for a good while and chewed it over and talked through it, and whatever questions he had, I tried to answer. And, you know, we talked through it.
Okay.
And it seemed to be understood from both sides.
okay. And when you're issued that permit, do you sign that packet? Like, say these are the rules, like, hey, I acknowledge these rules?
Yeah, I believe that the person who comes for the permit signs it, and I sign it when
Okay.
an issue, and a permit is issued, and there's a permit number and a sticker.
And it ties to that packet?
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
Is the ordinance, Yvonne, included in that packet, I assume?
yes.
Is it-
And a map, and there's still all kinds of information.
Yeah, I'm just asking, I'm trying to understand this.
Yeah.
Now, you guys said in the last comment that you sent him a letter. Did you send him a letter, or did you send him a form?
No, there was a letter stating, it's my understanding of what the letter said was after a certain date, there would be a fine. I mean, the letter was a notice of violation.
Okay. Does it look like a fine to me when I read the letter?
I don't know.
So I'm just trying
And
to clear it out a little bit, just trying to understand.
without having the letter right in front of me, I don't know that a fine was imposed or if it was stated that it would be after a certain date.
I thought the letter, what I remember reading in the letter was a cease and desist letter. And so
Okay.
there was the warning that a fine would be imposed if there was not a cease and desist.
Ted, can you answer that question?
Yeah, there was no fine.
There was no
It
fine?
was a notice of a violation. It was a, if you continue to violate, then fines would be assessed.
Okay, maybe it's a misunderstanding then. Does it look like a $69 fine with a money sign next to it?
I think that's the ordinance number.
Or is that the ordinance number? Okay, I just want to clarify.
I believe that
It's pretty
is.
vague on the paper.
So,
It was pretty clear. I mean, the letter said nothing about a fine. If you read the letter, all it said was you're in violation, cease from being in violation, or else you may be subject to fine.
so it was probably a sign that looked something like this that's on the ordinance.
Yeah.
That could be
it's been
interpreted as
folded
a-
up multiple times, so
Yeah.
I just want to see if, is it a fine or is it an ordinance number? Okay. Only other thing, did somebody from the town take a measurement of this truck from where the truck sat to the subway? Does anybody physically took that measurement?
I actually measured it on GIS,
Okay, but just GIS?
just GIS.
Okay,
And with the 300-foot rule, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt and tried to go as far away in the parking lot as possible. He's only 106 feet from the edge of the building. And I even measured it to the door to try to even,
the door of subway?
Yeah.
Or the door of the
the
truck?
door of Subway,
Okay.
from the back of the truck. I didn't measure from the front.
Yeah, look,
And it
I'm
was
not trying to
100.
argue with you.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
telling you, and it was 144 feet.
And I just,
So-
I know GIS says cannot be used for legal purposes.
I understand that.
So,
I use it every day. The measurement tool is fairly
I use it
accurate.
too.
But, if it was something like 295, I would've got a tape measure out. But,
All right, so I'm clear. So this ordinance is handed out when you file for a permit.
When you come in to request a packet, is my understanding.
Yes.
That within the packet is the ordinance and the application and the town map that will offer you, hey, this is the boundaries of the town. And so you get all of that information to take with you to digest, read, and understand as you move forward.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is this a packet I can have?
Sure.
Okay. And my only other question, when the fall festival is going on out here and the food trucks are here, are they held to the same standard?
That's a good question. That's,
Because they're sitting on state road at that point.
yeah.
Actually, I think there's, and I just need to
There's
find
an
exactly where it
exception.
is. There's an exception for special
Okay,
events.
I'm just trying to understand.
And, yeah, and that's declared a special event.
And I haven't been here for that. I think one of the things we have to be intentional about is unilateral enforcement, right? If we're going to enforce it, it has to be enforced across the board in every situation.
Correct.
The ordinance does allow for town-approved type of activities, and the Fall Festival would be one of those. I can't tell you for sure whether or not, when those circumstances, council has taken action, but this council, we need to be very intentional about making sure when those circumstances come up, we're addressing them specifically. So there are no questions.
Correct. I'm just asking, like I said.
Yeah, and I found in the ordinance, it's section 65.01B3, and that just, this is, it's worded in a negative. It says that this ordinance does not apply to, and number 3 says, any person or business selling food as part of a town-approved special event or festival. So that's where, when Main Street has events by the school, they come in and ask, for it to be declared a special event.
All right, that's fair enough. Like I said, I was just trying to figure out all the details. Because me and my family and several of our guys have been at this truck since it showed up, I think, 2 years ago. And we've had nothing but issues, no issues out of it. I mean, they've been pretty quick, they've been professional. And I'd rather see the food truck there than an empty space or another liquor store.
Yeah.
You know, so, that's all I had. I just want to see about the measurement and the packet. Okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have a comment that you wanted to throw in?
I was just gonna say, on the acknowledgement of the ordinance, usually when the operator signs up for the packet, they understand that they're gonna be held to all the ordinances. It's kind of one of those.
Catch-all?
Yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Anyone else?
Please don't be bashful. Share, I mean, we're interested in hearing what thoughts are.
My name's Lee Berry. I live at 3385 South Leonard Road. So, why did you increase the distance from 200 feet to 300 feet?
That didn't
And
pass.
why is not 100 feet considered a decent amount of distance in between two places who are going to compete for business?
That's
If
one
I
of
were
the,
you, I would reduce that distance to 100 feet and allow that food truck to come back.
I think that's one of the things that I've thought about, we've had conversation about is what is that distance? What's the most reasonable distance? Or are there ways to create more community involvement? For example, in the ordinance, could we create an option for if you are operating within that boundary, can the other businesses sign off on it, right? I mean, are there things that we can put in place that create space and opportunity for us to make sure we're not restricting where there doesn't need to be restrictions?
What's the difference between two food places operating next to each other in a building versus the food truck operating
Yeah.
in a parking lot?
Because this ordinance was designed to protect the brick and mortar businesses because they're paying money and all that, insurance.
But it's not operating right next to brick and mortar food business.
Well,
It was
according to
almost,
this,
would you say almost 200 feet away?
no.
there's 144 to the door.
Okay. Is that not a great enough distance between two competing companies?
Well, the distance is one thing that was on our list to discuss, because we thought 300 foot was excessive.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's,
true.
we're trying to find that balance there. That's what this is, part of this discussion's about, to try to find that balance. But food trucks are temporary. It's, it's not something that needs to be there for 8 months out of the year compared to a brick and mortar. So even if we do reduce the distance, and there's still gonna be a time limit there.
Okay.
But-
Did they leave it parked overnight?
Yes.
They drove it home? No, they left it there? Okay. Then if you make it so that they move it on the weekends or take it for an evening, they can come back and place it in, 11 o'clock the next morning so they can open up for lunch? What's wrong with that?
That's another thing that we're trying to establish this evening.
That's what
For
I'm
these
bringing up,
discussions.
this is what you want is community,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I'm asking you questions, to make you guys think, because New Pal is gonna grow. And if you keep turning people away, which is exactly what you're doing, you're stifling yourself.
Unfortunately, New Palestine is 52. And we've all studied every place along here. I even think that this ordinance was originated when there weren't as many places, and so it may not have been as restrictive. But then, you know, all along 52, we have places popping up, restaurants popping up. So I think that's been another problem with this ordinance. It just needs to be updated to what the growth has been.
One of the other things we've seen in other town ordinances as we've been looking at them to try to figure out, hey, what are the best options and how are other towns solving and coming up with solutions was, you know, a tiered system for licenses, whether it's a year or 6 months or event or a few consecutive days, so that we can better balance maybe some of the investment that food trucks may make into the town and the community versus the brick and mortar, and try to figure out if a tiered system of licensings would better serve those food trucks who are coming in. And that way we can monitor that and work with those numbers, whether they're a limited number of licenses at certain tiers or it's just however many come in. And so there's those type of things that we're looking at, thinking through and trying to figure out when we start amending and writing a new ordinance, what are those pieces that are going to help us be most effective? Because I eat at the taco truck, or I ate at the taco truck. I didn't have anything against the taco truck. The only difficulty was we're in a place to enforce an ordinance that's been on the books. And so now we're trying to fix the ordinance so that we can better serve the community.
But as I was looking through your 2021, 2023, it looked like you were increasing the amount of restriction.
Yeah, we're not even really, the 2023 is, I'm just speaking for me, it's kind of off the table because it never passed. So it wasn't even developed by this.
23 passed.
23 passed, but the
second.
amendments of the 23 didn't. So what we're looking at is looking at what ordinances on the books so that we can then say, okay, where are the places that we need to make adjustments to better serve? And I think the reduction of feet or hours in one location, there's all of these moving pieces that we have to try to figure out. What levels do they need to be at to best serve? But there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. And we don't want to have just new unintended consequences that'll bring us right back to it in a few months.
There's also safety involved, and I sat across the street and watched the customers pull in, and then they had to back out onto 52, and then there were pedestrians going from CVS to the Speedway, and they had to dodge who was backing out. So it's just an unfortunate spot that anyone's ever allowed to be there. I don't think it was thought out, and so we have been trying to think where else would be a good place. I mean, we have nothing against this food truck. It's just in a bad location. I think Councilman Melinder even said 2 meetings ago that there are 2 places that a possibility of a food truck could be, and wasn't that the fitness center, the far lot of the fitness center, according to this ordinance, the way it's written, and then at the cul-de-sac in the industrial area, so that they wouldn't be anywhere near, competing with a brick and mortar food and beverage place. So we're trying, and I don't know.
Well, and maybe Ethan's suggestion of, if you're gonna be within whatever the distance is, and currently it's 200, the 300 didn't pass. So if you're within 200, maybe there's some thought to
300.
No, it is
300 passed
300 passed?
Yeah.
in April 19,
Okay.
23. It was changed from 200 to 300.
Okay, so that obviously makes it a lot more restrictive, but whatever brick and mortar establishments are within that distance, some consideration. You go to, if Subway's the only one, you go to Subway and Subway says, I'm okay with it. Well, the purpose of that ordinance was to protect that specific business, and if they say they're okay with it, maybe that's a change that we consider making.
I'd throw it in there.
And you know, the flip side is if they say, you know what, I have, you know, a 5-year lease, I'm paying the real estate taxes, the utilities, and everything else that comes with a brick and mortar establishment, common area maintenance, just everything that comes with it, and for those reasons, I'm against it. Well, at least then we would know.
Yeah,
Give them options.
great.
So,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next?
I got another question.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're good.
So if he's currently leasing the building where he's at, what says he has to move the truck because he's leasing the property with the building? I keep hearing about moving this truck.
The lease between the food truck and the property owner has no bearing on the town. That's none of our business. That's a private deal between the owner of the truck and the building owner.
And it doesn't exempt that vehicle from the ordinance.
It's because it's got wheels and an engine.
He's still a food truck.
Yeah,
It's
but as
still
long
a
as
food
it's
truck.
insured and plated, it can be parked wherever. If I lease the building next door, Dunaway Insurance, nobody can say what pickup I can park in that parking lot as long as it's insured and plated.
Well, that's not true.
Well,
We had a RV that was parked on Main Street in a business parking lot, and we had to send them a letter saying, even though it was owned by the person who was renting that space, we don't want RVs sitting along Main Street.
Okay.
So,
So what's the length of time, I guess?
The current ordinance, I think, says 2 days, and that's kind of, that was part of the amendments. We're cleaning up that language a little bit to be more
Yeah,
definitive.
Pretty vague, like,
Yeah.
are we paying Newcastle Police to drive over there and mark the tire? And then if it doesn't move in 2 days, we write them a ticket?
I am not aware that we have done that yet.
Not me, at least.
My hope actually would be if someone comes in for a food truck application, fills it out, is aware of the ordinance and would honor the ordinance, right? So I think that my hope would be that if the ordinance says you can be there 48 hours, whatever the next version of the ordinance says, that those who are doing so would honor that. Now that's my perfect world.
Yeah, because you said earlier, if we move them down to like the wellness center, well, then he would have to get permission from Hancock County to sit in their parking lot because that's
No,
their.
No, wellness is us.
the hospital.
Yeah, but they're owned by who?
The town, it's the town property.
Well, they would have to get permission from from Hancock Hospital.
Hancock
Right.
Hospital.
Right.
because
But they're in town limits.
Because they own it.
Which would be.
Okay.
Might be.
I just know that the Hancock County is built across the street from me, and I talked to Harold Gibson. In their paperwork, they state no additional non-brick and mortar to be set up on it. I
Think-
don't know if it's applicable here.
But so if somebody asked, they would most likely say no.
Right.
Right,
Okay,
because
so,
I asked, and I was told no because of that reason.
Okay.
so if he pulls the truck around back every night, then the truck would be moved, correct? Would that be okay? I'm just.
Well, this says you can't be in the same location for more than 48 hours in a week. So moving it back, you're still
It's moving.
right, but it says no more than 48 hours in the same location in a week period.
Okay.
Now, I don't know who's gonna be out there with a stopwatch.
Correct,
but-
and I also heard we're worried about the safety of the traffic, but prior to that, it was a liquor store and it had 100 cars in it every night.
And thank goodness that is not the case
Is
anymore.
that the ordinance we're
Yeah.
looking
I
at?
mean, no.
Yeah, we don't have a liquor store ordinance.
But you see what I'm saying, though, like, I mean,
Yeah.
so we want a vape shop in there, or do we want a taco truck?
It's just too close to the road.
I mean, I think the safety thing is a concern. I wish we could figure out a good solution for that. And I would recommend that there is some element of safety put into a new ordinance that makes sure that we can ensure approaching and leaving a food truck helps not only those who are approaching and leaving, but those who may be driving by and through to be safe.
Yeah. It's like, if I go there, I park in a gas station. It's easier to get in.
There you go. Yeah,
There's
that's a
plenty
great
of-
idea.
But there's also a semi that parks at the gas station every night. Anybody enforce that? Oh, I didn't know we were opening the truck lot out here.
I don't think there's an ordinance in place that
But you see what I'm
prohibits a
saying?
vehicle in a gas station.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but the only ordinance that we have in front of us is the food truck ordinance to try to figure out.
Okay.
And so,
I was
we're
trying-
hoping that through conversation tonight and through the council members, that we're going to be able to come up with some good solutions and some ideas. And I appreciate the perspective and the thoughts on the food truck ordinance that help us get this right, because there's probably a long list of other things, right?
I mean, I haven't been to one of these in 10 years.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, I'm only here because food truck's good, so.
There you
I don't
go.
want to see him go to Cumberland and then have to worry about getting robbed every night.
Right.
Versus he could be here and he could be safe, and then it could be here in this community.
Fair enough.
Can I just talk real quick? Yeah. Safety wise, have there been accidents related to the food truck out front? Do we know if there has been not?
Yeah, I don't know.
To my knowledge, I have personally never taken a crash report in front of the food truck or near it while it was in operation.
How about a robbery?
I'm sorry?
How about a robbery?
No. Not when I'm working, they know better.
That usually happens on the other side of Carroll Road.
Well, see, I own property on the other side too. It's really not that bad there. Now, you gotta go north if you want the issues.
Okay.
I go to Cumberland. So, okay, all right, yeah, that's what I'm just trying to figure out, like,
Yep.
what the exact rules are. I think he's also having trouble understanding what to a T he's allowed to do and what he's not allowed to do. And I think as an individual business owner and everything else, and I have employees and we have to follow a lot of rules and laws too, I think if there is an issue understanding something on a piece of paper that's handed out by a town council, a city, state, anything, you should offer it in another language so everybody understands everything, so it's 100% clear.
I think that's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, so if you put it in Spanish, are you gonna put it in Russian and
But it doesn't
You have to-
matter. If
yeah.
we go to court,
Mhm.
my paperwork is gonna come in whatever language I understand.
That follows on with the Title VI stuff probably. So,
Well, I go to court every day. I've never once ever seen a pleading in any language other than English.
Well, that's the only language you may understand.
Oh, no, I mean, I've sat as a judge for 34 years, and I've used this language interpreter line and have interpreters almost daily. Not once have I seen anything written in Spanish, not a single time.
Never.
Never, not once.
Okay. Which court were you?
I'm in 5 different courts in Marion County.
Okay. As a judge?
Mhm.
Okay. Criminal or
Have
real
been.
estate?
Mostly small claims court and usually on landlord-tenant eviction day.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand. Like, I'm trying to make it fair for everybody.
Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Catherine?
Hi, my name is Catherine Courts. I live at 29 West Main Street, right here in New Palestine, and it's a beautiful town. And my concern is that when we start letting in the food trucks, it is the security or the safety of those individuals who are up and down the streets, pulling in and out off of 52, because 52 is a very, obviously, it's a state street, so that concerns me. I will say, full disclosure, I am part of the New Palestine Main Street. And we do put on different functions throughout the year. We have June, we have the Summerfest, and Christmas time we have the Winterfest. And so we do have food trucks that come in just for that explicit function. And I think our ordinance covers that pretty well. So I would like to keep that as far as Main Street goes. If it's a city-sanctioned event, that there wouldn't be an issue with food trucks coming in.
As long as an organization comes before us for those events, I'm not sure, and we haven't had one yet.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I
but I don't
understand.
think there's a blanket, if you're a Main Street event, you're covered. I think it's a matter of coming, any organization, I would like to hear before those things are finalized, to share your plans and the benefit to the town so
Well, I
that we
do know
can,
that
we can
this-
take action.
This Summerfest, we're going to have even more food trucks and more vendors coming in. We've already started getting applications in. They're not all food trucks. We try to keep the food truck area just around the green area. The other vendors are gonna be like, insurance or home construction or, anything along that lines, all the way up. And eventually, we'd like to fill it from Bittner to Jim, as time goes forward. So from that standpoint, and again, this is just conversation, I'd like to keep that part of it, if we can.
Well, and I think each year, Main Street has come in and said, here's Summerfest, here's our concert series, and they've requested that those be, declared a special event. And, as long as I've been around, and at least on the council, it's only been
Yeah,
5
it's
years.
usually just the 2 nights. They come in, set up their Friday night, then Saturday night. We don't want them leaving, when there's still people out and about, so. And some of them have trailed it into early mornings of Sunday morning, but for the most part, we've not had any problems. So I just wanted to stand up for that, to see if we could somehow kind of keep that going and that not be an issue. And if something is sanctioned by the town, that would be kept.
And Catherine, sorry,
That's
let me
okay.
clarify that when you have the Summerfest events and they're there for those amount of days, 52 is shut down,
Yes, yes.
just so, for safety reasons, I guess.
And Winterfest, we hope to eventually be able to shut down 52 as well, to have horse carriage rides and things along that lines as we go along. But again, the food ordinance part of it, I would just like to make sure. As far as, this is just a personal opinion, it would be nice if there was an area in town where the food trucks could go, not necessarily in front of a business, where we know that cars can get in and out, pedestrian can walk to it. I know that, sidewalks are an issue in town. We're trying to get sidewalks, to try to connect us. And I know as time goes, we will do that. But right now, in my thinking, because I live right here on Main Street and I see the kids on bicycles and I see the people up and down the streets, it does concern me to have food trucks right here on Main Street, because there's not really any place to park, for people that are coming to visit those food trucks, that they can safely get in and they can safely get out. That is a concern I have, right, being and seeing this right here on Main Street. I think that parking here in New Palestine is an issue. And so, I don't know, again, where there would be an area here in town that maybe could be designated as a food truck area, that if they wanted to be a part of the community and do their food trucks, that maybe we as a town could designate an area that we have looked into to see that it is an area where people can walk to or they can drive to, and that there wouldn't be an issue. Because I'm sorry to say, but as we grow and people are out and they're in a hurry, they don't always see and do. And luckily, we haven't had any issues. We haven't had to have the police officers maybe make an arrest or have an accident that has to be reported. But accidents do happen just like that. And if we could maybe have an area designated again, then maybe we would have some of the issues that we're running into. And this is just an idea.
That's something that when Jim presented the new town center and kind of the drawings of that, the conceptual drawings of that and stuff, is something that I mentioned to him about maybe having a designated area in that new town center somewhere for parking for food trucks.
Yeah. And I know with food trucks, there is the cups and the plates and then your napkins, and I pick up a lot of stuff here on Main Street trying to keep it neat and nice because I am on the beautification. So that, you know, with that extra food truck, that also brings about, because not everybody always has receptacles where they need to put their trash, and they just throw it, and so.
It's an ordinance.
That is an ordinance.
It's in the ordinance.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
you know, I do get that I pick up. So these are just little things that I've thought of, and as a person that lives right here on Main Street, it's going to affect me a great deal. So I feel like I should stand up and say something.
Thank you.
So,
And just thinking out loud along those lines, I wonder if the Lions Club has ever considered, the one thing about the Lions Club is the ability to pull off of Main Street. There's plenty of room, you're off the street. You know, I think it addresses some of the safety concerns, so.
I have worked the Lions Club, and I was going to suggest that location. I did Friday night food trucks, last summer. And parking lot was sufficient for even 2 or 3 food trucks operating simultaneously.
well, I know we have a meeting tomorrow night, the Lions Club does, because we're going to be discussing Eclipse, whether it's what we're going to do on that exactly, because we're not getting as much input as we like. So at the meeting, I will bring that up to them.
And see if there's any
And I'll see
interest.
yes, to see if there's any interest in maybe that being, it's just an idea, because in that way, we don't run into maybe turning someone away because it's not parked in the best place. If we already know that there's a place that's safe, now, granted, if it's at the Lions Club, I know that there isn't really a good walk from here in town to the Lions Club. Again, there's no sidewalk. That's the downside of it. But at least it might be something that we could start with. So I will bring that up at the meeting tomorrow night.
Yeah, please do, because I like, you know, one of my things on here is Food Truck Fridays. I mean, as some entertainment and,
Because really, right through here on Main Street, there really isn't any place for a food truck to be safe. There just really isn't. So-
And I'm sure the school, they wouldn't be receptive.
Well, no, because even if you put food trucks around that one area, you still have, well, right now with the construction of the school, granted, that's not long-term, but
Oh, it
you
has
still
been
have. Well, but my point is that there are buses that come in and out there for high school band loading and unloading. There is then the little block, the old city hall that has it. So that isn't the best area either. That, you know, so just me before I came here tonight was just really trying to think through where you could, and really there's just not a great spot right here on Main Street. So just a thought.
I will say that personally speaking, I hope we do keep the part where there are town-approved events.
Yes.
But I want to make sure that those organizations are coming and know that they need to come in order to get the town approval, because that, as we discussed at the last meeting, has to come from the council.
Okay, do you want a time frame on that?
Well, that may be something we have to consider is so much time prior, because you have organization and scheduling and things like that. But for your Summerfest, I would, as soon as you feel like you have something to give us, come and share about Summerfest so we can make that a town approved. I would. I don't know about them. I'm sure they would. So that we can approve that as a town, so it helps you with your organization.
Right. Okay. Well, these are just my thoughts. and-
Sure,
and just-
and I think the town has been receptive on a situation-by-situation basis. You know, the pub historically has come 1 or 2 evenings during the summer where they want, you know, the approval to essentially violate the noise ordinance. Have an outdoor band beyond whatever the time is, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. Most of the time, there are neighbors that are supporting the request. So, you know.
And that could be something that's within the ordinance, maybe that's something that has to be addressed, that if it is something that has to be signed off by someone that's within so much of a distance. Yeah, I don't know, maybe that's splitting hairs, I don't know.
That's what we
But
do.
there's just things that we need, well,
That's what the ordinance is.
I know. But with any ordinance, and I know it's like with anything, there's always something that's Bible says there's nothing new under the, under the sun, but there are things that come up that we just don't always think about. And so, again, my thought was just me being here and me seeing it and living it daily. I just don't really see personally a great spot here on Main Street to have any food trucks.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go again. So, Brad Bob, 132 Main Street, I didn't move in. So, right, in all reality, in New Pal, there is like virtually zero street parking. Like virtually none. So, food trucks all up and down Main Street, it's not gonna happen. There's like 3 places you can park here on a street. And trying to get a food truck in there and actually sell and make money is probably non-existent. Now, Town Hall does have a really nice gravel lot over in the corner that's been full of gravel since the Shell station was there. Town Hall could have total autonomy on that one. Hey, you gotta move that. And there's plenty of parking. It's out of the way. It's safe. I mean, police park right there. So,
Where do you guys eat lunch now?
I eat everywhere.
just throwing it out there, I mean, that space has been a gravel drive since they tore the Shell station.
Right.
Why not? I mean, we got the noise ordinance, again, in other municipalities, there's a noise ordinance on generators. So if somebody comes with a microphone and if your generator's too loud, you can't be here. So, you know, institute something of that nature. But, again, food trucks all up and down Main Street, it's not gonna happen. It's just not.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay.
Can you sell tacos out the window of the building?
Doesn't have wheels. That's a drive-through.
Would be like crossing board, right?
I'm sure that whatever health code has to be done, as long as those boxes are checked, I guess, right?
And traffic patterns.
Bring the tacos in.
Traffic pattern.
Building doesn't have wheels. It's not subject to the food truck ordinance.
I'd like to speak, if that's
Oh,
okay.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So,
Name.
I have
Need to
something
say
I'd
your
like to
name
read.
and address, please.
Pardon me?
Name and address.
My name is Dawn Mapes, and I live at 6165 West 200 North. I am a Hancock County resident. I've been there for 27 years.
Thank you.
So, all of us that are involved in a food truck are subject to the state regulations of this state individually. I would like to read this to you because all of us are, I know this is about your parking and your ordinance, but this is my life. And you're the first people who hopefully will care enough to listen. So I'd like to proceed if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
3 years ago, I invested $27,000 on all new equipment, a truck and trailer to become 100% self-sufficient because the government shutdown left me with little or no options. I was diligent in my build and my equipment selections. I purchased all new equipment so my build would be premium for the longest time. Such is my dedication to making my food truck my primary source of long-term. You keep talking temporary, but my need for income is consistent. This was my livelihood. I wasn't doing events. I did events. They were bonuses. I was open Monday through Friday, 11 to 7 or 8, depending on business, year-round. While preparing my menu, I focused on my skills and I sought a gap in available choices to build a daily market. At the time of opening, I was 100% compliant and built and marketed a business sufficient in providing for myself and my family of 5. The second year, due to new regulations on the disposal of my gray water, I had to use a commissary under contract for $150 a month, which equates to $3,400 a year in sales that went just for my gray water disposal. Now, with the new regulations put in place by the state, I have effectively been put out of business as of January 1st, 2024. December 31st, 2023, I was 100% compliant, making a living, providing for my family. The only commissary I've located is in Marion County, and the contract for cooking weekly, which is mandatory under the new state regulations, you can no longer cook in your food truck, is $600 a month, which equates to $14,400 in annual sales that I do not benefit for, that I do the labor for.
You can't cook in your food truck?
No. While I am still obligated on the loans I took out for my equipment, which is far superior to the commissary's equipment, which is 34 years old and is the old MCL in Washington Square. I have pleased every customer I gained while I was open, and I only received 5-star reviews. As of today, I cannot financially take on the burden of the commissary while I provide for my family. The regulations have no logic behind them. My entire career life has been out in the field. I was a realtor, a field inspector, safety inspector for OSHA. I've been out working in the field. I didn't do an office job. And many times a lack of education and practical application from the people who only work inside the offices made for ridiculous requests. This is the case of the state regulations. I slow roasted my meat, brisket, for up to 12 hours, depending on how much weight I was preparing. In no reality would I be confident placing my livelihood in an oven and leaving it unattended until morning, hoping no one turned it up, turned it down, turned it off, tampered with it, or took it. New regulations now state you can only have 2 perishable items. Hot dogs and buns, there's your 2 perishable items. Chicken and bread, 2 perishable items. I had a full menu I was confident with. I served the public, which is why all of us go into business, is so we can make a living, gain happy customers, and provide something that is not prepackaged, which is now what the state is regulating. They want you to serve prepackaged food that's wrapped in plastics, which we all know are hazardous to us. And they have effectively, completely, 100% put me out of business. January 1st, I was unable to open. I have not been able to open. My menu was barbecue, tacos, and chili. They told me none of my menu was effective, that I had to cut all of that out. I could pick 1 meat item. Society is moving away from all the packaged foods, but yet our new state regulations are taking away the fresh selection that we're all trying to provide for our society and putting us back to where we're no longer making our own food. All food has to be prepared in the commissary.
Isn't that kind of contrary to the entire concept
Thank you
of
very
a food
much.
truck?
And you talk about that we're not a brick and mortar. We serve a different industry. We cater weddings. We go to people's homes who are having parties. You can't do that with a brick and mortar unless you're pre-packaging it and taking it, and by the time you get it cold, I don't care if you have it in a warmer or not, it is not fresh. But with the new regulations, there's no way we can do that many jumping jacks and backflips to provide a quality product. I have had to go out and get an hourly job after I invested everything into this. I worked in the Lions Club here. Everyone loved my food. You know, don't think of us as temporary. We put our livelihoods into this. And Hancock County, I had to go in front of the Hancock County Commissioners and get permission to park at I-70 and Mount Comfort Road. I parked there daily. The only restriction that they gave me was because it had to be a variance on an empty lot, was that I didn't leave it there for 24 hours. I took it home with me every night. And if you're truly a mobile unit, that is not a problem. So you know, you have an ordinance, and all of this is about your parking, but we're all affected by this. It is amazing overreach. And personally, I believe it's because the health inspectors don't want the workload. If you have 100 food trucks that you're supposed to inspect twice a year, and you can cut 50 of them out, you just are getting paid for half the work that you were paid to do. And I think that's exactly where the basis of it comes from. I went for providing for a family of 6 to going back in and getting paid an hourly job. Maybe you have more weight because they don't care what I have to say. And I know that everyone else here is under the same regulations for this state. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate all your stories, and definitely will take those into consideration. I definitely didn't stick with a 3-minute time limit, but that's who we are. That's who we are. We want to hear you, and we just want to be a part of the community. Okay, so next we'll go to old business, which is food truck ordinance discussion.
Ethan, you got anything?
I got lots of stuff. I mean, I do think the areas which I would like us to look at are a tiered system for applications and licenses, revisiting kind of the spatial distance between food trucks and brick and mortar in one way or another. Either we have a defined feet, but give an option for our community to welcome food trucks should those businesses within that range be okay with it. I don't know how, but I think that we do need to think through safety and those pieces. I don't have a good solution for that particular piece, but I don't want a food truck in a location. I don't want to have to wait for an accident to happen to decide if a food truck should be there or not be there. But for me, the two biggest ones that I'm looking at is kind of changing to a tiered license system, and then the distance between where a food truck can operate out of. And I wouldn't mind figuring out if there is some space we can designate a food truck area.
Thank you. Brian, Bill?
Well, I was kind of on the same page with Ethan. Visiting that, going back to that footage, what does that footage need to be to be viable to work for the town at a location? Look at the time limit on how long a truck can be parked per location. I agree with you, some kind of tiered system and fee system for that as well. I personally don't like the annual permit side of it. That's just me. But and if there's a way that there is a way that we can offer it in a different language. I don't know if you can change your computer to print that. I don't know how to do that.
I can translate it in Dutch.
That's a start. That's a start.
I don't know how we would do that, but
I do know when we sat down, and I can only in this case, and I don't mean to call you out, but when he and I sat down to go over this, there was a lot of discussion. And whenever there was a question, he also had somebody else call and get some clarification. So we tried really hard to have the communications be, as clear as possible. And, I am not a Spanish speaker, and I know we don't have a Spanish speaker on staff either. But if we need to have something specifically translated for somebody, I'm sure that there are services for that, because I did translating for Barnes and Thornburg way back when, in Dutch and from Dutch to English. So I am sure that there's some kind of translating service we can hire.
I'll look into the service that we use at the court. It's a phone, you call, you give them your account. They hook you up with any language. Now, there have been times that it's been 10 or 15 minutes to find something fairly unusual or exotic, but they found it.
The trick is when you have written paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, we also give that for people to take home. I mean, that packet that I just gave you, sir, was in my in-basket because I always have it handy. If somebody asks for food truck information, they get the packet and they can take it home. The same with the golf cart ordinance and the golf cart permit. That's a packet that people can take home. There shouldn't be, we're not forcing anybody to fill anything outstanding here, So, but we'll do whatever. If there's translating services, I know there are, just so long as it's not cost prohibitive, I am sure that, that can be helped.
Out of curiosity, those of you who took the time to be here, who had in one way or another own or operate or have or will a food truck, how many of those are here? You, and Alberta, is it those three? How many brick and mortar restaurants are here? It seems interesting that as we talk about the relationship between food trucks and brick and mortars, that there's not been a representative of a restaurant that has a brick and
They're
mortar.
probably running their restaurant.
I'm sorry?
They're probably running their restaurant.
Well, they can have a representative.
It's a different business model.
It's a different business model. But my argument, my observation is that, maybe those feet doesn't have to be 300 because they're not here to speak against that.
Well, on a note, so, like, say if you were downtown Indianapolis, right? I can go feed a meter and park there all day. Nobody's the wiser. I can literally park in front of...
As a food truck?
Any food establishment that I wanted to. Now, would I? Probably not. But I can literally park right in front of their door, as long as I'm feeding the meter, nobody's gonna say it.
I like the idea that whatever distance we end up with, that if there's a brick and mortar within that distance, that it could be waived if they sign off.
According to the town ordinance, literally has that as the last line.
Okay.
Pretty much the very similar word.
Greenfield, it's the same way, that if the brick and mortar signs a document saying that it's okay, then they waive the distance.
Do you know what those towns' distances are, just off?
It's 200.
200?
It's, but, I mean.
That's pretty standard.
As long as it's like different food options, like,
Right.
I wouldn't go park a sub truck right next to the Subway.
Right.
Yeah.
But tacos and,
Yeah.
bologna sandwiches, that's different.
I do apologize for my rant, but I don't have anyone to talk to.
I appreciate your story.
No.
Thank you. I didn't know the regulations changed, and I would think you
As
could.
of January 1st of this year.
You gave us a lot of information I didn't know on the state level. We don't deal with that.
Right. The only way I found out is I went to apply for my new permit, and Marion County denied me.
I just find it amazing you can't get food in a food truck.
I know.
So what, the food truck, this taco truck, they're not supposed to be cooking the food
No.
there?
It's preparation.
It has to be prepared, and then they can heat it and serve it.
Oh, I'm not in the business, so that's why I'm just
Right.
asking questions, because I really don't understand.
They don't want
So you
to
prepare
take
it
your-
somewhere else, and then it's just a reheating type
Right.
thing?
Marion County's always had a commissary ordinance. Always.
Right.
Always. Hancock County did not.
But it's not at the state level?
It's state level now.
Well, at the very least, looking, you've made me want, and I don't like doing so, but dig into the state ordinances.
I would appreciate it. Can I give you my telephone number?
You can, I'm not sure I'm
I
gonna be
don't know.
much.
I called the governor and ran to the grave, and they just said, whoops, it's
Well,
later, bye.
He doesn't take my calls either.
Well, but I'm just saying, maybe you know someone of who.
I don't, but maybe they know me.
Local state representative, that's what I thought.
Hey, there's a couple that are running right now.
There's a forum coming up real soon too, that maybe you could
Thursday.
Thursday and ask questions.
There you go.
Something to think about is every year government comes up with new rules and regulations, and I have yet to know any that they do away with as they continue to pile them on. You know, we're just trying to make a living.
Well, we may not be able to fix government, but we're
No,
going
I'm
to try
just
really
saying-
hard for food
I'm
trucks.
just saying, logically, it comes down, and we have to start somewhere, you know?
Fair enough.
So, and I appreciate you thinking about being lenient on the, that was a shock to me. I was like, yes, logic, you know?
That's our logic. So when you were at the Lions Club, did you have to pay? Were you there Monday through
No,
Friday?
I was invited.
Oh, invited.
I was invited in.
Okay.
Kelly was running the event for Food Truck Fridays, and she asked me to work on Fridays. I worked, I think, 9 or 10 of them last year, and it was very successful, so.
And not that it makes any difference, but I did look at the Lions Club parking lot on GIS and do some measuring, and after you get past that drive point on 52, the whole parking lot is past 300 foot of McDonald's. So I know, again, the 300 foot we're gonna look at.
Is it straight across or is it down and out?
I measured from the corner of the parking lot over to McDonald's.
So straight across as
Straight
road
across,
flies?
as a bird flies. So obviously, we're gonna look at the footage thing anyway, but,
That's that's outside the 300 is what you're saying.
yeah, so,
Now we just have to get sidewalks to it.
one thing at a time, Bill.
Okay.
Okay, that's gonna be a bigger challenge, I think.
Okay.
But we do serve a purpose, and people do like our food because it is fresh, it's handmade.
I'm a big fan of food trucks.
I'm a big fan of eating.
I was actually talking to a restaurant, and because I was curious about a brick and mortar's perspective, and it was a similar style of food, and it happened to be a Mexican restaurant, and they were like, the food trucks can make better tacos than we can. When they go get tacos, they go to the food trucks because you can get better tacos at food trucks because they can make it fresher and they can do the things.
Right, we're not making it.
Right. And they
we're
said
making it for
the restaurant can't do as well as the food trucks. So I'm not disagreeing with you, and I want to find ways for us to welcome food trucks into New Pal in a way that supports the whole community.
Right.
Without having one on every corner.
That would probably be preferable.
You can't park on a corner.
There you go.
It's in the ordinance.
There you go.
I do think if we go to a tiered
Then
level,
you can't park out here. That's a corner.
Well, that's actually a lot, it's not a public street corner, which is what the ordinance says.
Oh, gotcha.
if we go to a tiered, we may look at limiting the number of licenses we offer per tier.
That's, well, I think, that's one thing to look at too, total number of licenses issued.
I was actually gonna ask that. Do you know how many you've issued?
Right
I think-
now?
Very many.
I don't think we have very many.
Is it more?
One.
There we go.
You would have to be careful because not every permit that comes to you wants to operate inside the town limits.
Right.
They don't need
So
to.
you would have to be
Then
careful.
then they wouldn't be
Yeah, they're-
talking about.
So my question is, Ted, with our current ordinance, if she's at the Lions Club, does she have to get a town license if they invite her in there?
I believe that's right. I think it applies to public and private, doesn't it?
It does.
It does. But you've never done that because
never had to
it's
do
never
that.
been a thing, right?
I've
So-
never had to do that. I'm licensed by the state
Right.
and I'm inspected by Hancock County Health Department.
Well, the reason being is, you would be violating the use ordinance, permissible uses if you could just park on private land. Right, and so that's why you need basically the exception created by the ordinance. To do that, that's the licensing also on private property. Because otherwise, it's like a lemonade stand, right? Technically illegal. You can't have a lemonade stand it was a big issue during the county this past year with police saying they could find kids in limited stands. Yeah, it's silly. But technically, it's the ordinance of use issue, and you're operating a business that is zoned for that, it's like municipal use, it's valid.
Yeah, I know some little kids you can go after. That's horrible.
I'd probably be selling it right there with them.
I'll be buying it from
Yeah,
them, so.
I've watched.
If it was like energy drinks, I would not let you guys shut them down. I'd be supportive. I'd be on the wrong side.
Parking lot only, or managed by the town?
There's actually
No, this
rules
one.
against
This one is.
food trucks selling
But-
energy drinks.
So they would have to
It
get the town
increases your
manager to,
insurance up to five.
Right.
Minimum was $500 a year if you sell any energy drinks. It's an increase to your insurance premium.
Probably stop drinking them then.
Like I said,
So in theory, the Lions Club, at our current ordinance, the Lion Club invites them, they're supposed to have a license for that. Does the Lions Club know that?
Yes, they've come in here for special,
Special requests.
for when they have
they
an
advertise
event.
the food truck.
That's all I'm trying to figure
Right.
out. So when they have their food truck Fridays, the Lions Club comes in.
They were given one permit for the year for the special events.
So that Friday night food was considered a special, so it wasn't like any other day of the week, it was just that
Apparently,
Friday.
yeah.
But does that fall outside of the food truck ordinance?
No,
Only if
because
the
it's a special
council
event.
declares that's a special event, and apparently they did.
Did the council or did the town?
Did the council or did
I mean,
the-
I'm just trying to understand how whether we need to change things or don't need to change. That's what I want to figure out.
That's always a good question.
The ordinance did not have that private use land in it.
The 2021 did not, but the 2023 does.
Yeah, I believe it did. It changed that piece of it kind of changed a little bit from the old one to the.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 21, and it says whether operated on public or private property.
Mm.
Just because I underlined it, because now what was there in 16, I don't know.
That might have been one I was thinking of.
Okay.
Bill, your thoughts?
100% the same. And my preference would be if we could find a designated food truck area, because I 100% agree with, I don't know how the liquor store operated at that location. I absolutely don't. And if I was a liquor store, I wouldn't want to be there, but, that's just because, call me silly, I don't want my customers involved in an accident because they're gonna say, okay, I'm not going back. So I'd want to be in a location that was safe. So I would really like the idea, if we can find one, a designated food truck area, because that addresses the safety, the parking, if we ever got to the point, and we're a long way away from it, if we needed to have security, that could be something that could be provided one way or the other. But, and it eliminates pockets, that may or may not be permissible. So if everybody that comes in for a permit is told, here's where you can go, problem solved. So, and I don't know, we have to talk to the Lions Club and see if they would even entertain such a thing. But, me personally, I think it'd be great if we could do something like that.
I agree. I think, like we beat to death that the geographical footprint is just such a challenge. I think we should beef up special events like the food truck Fridays and I know homeowners associations have said that they want a food truck on Saturdays to bring their communities together. Schools and churches, I just think there are a lot of opportunities for food trucks and yeah, I mean, my heart goes out to all of you. If you're depending on that for your living, then like Bill just said, we do need a designated area. So I guess that's something that we need to work on. first and foremost. And thank you, Catherine. She just held up her hand. She's on it.
Well, and then going beyond that, if there were to be an area designated, then you start getting into the weeds of, if you have too many that apply, then, okay, you get it for X amount of time, and then, you know, to allow, I mean, because you can't say, okay, and then, well, you were here first, well, 3 years down the road, you know, there's still somebody trying to, what I'm saying
Well,
is,
actually, I
if there
think
was a
we have-
designated.
We can limit the number of permits, and it would be first come, first served.
Yeah. But those are things just to think about when you're doing that, to be fair to all.
And I really think that if we get less specific, I know that sounds crazy, but if you've gone over these as much as we have, it just gets more and more complicated. But if we leave it more up to the town manager's discretion with the approval of the town council, we would have a set standard to go by. And then, you know, because you talk about the number of food trucks, well, maybe you have a big food truck come in, and maybe you have just a little one come in. So do you then take it from 5 to 6 because that small one left a little more space? Or, you know, so that's where it gets really sticky. And I think those are the things.
And I think the hardest thing of all, no matter what the final wording is, we have to uniformly enforce it. So however it's written, it needs to be complied with. So, and that's probably the biggest challenge, because as written, I think Ryan said, there's nowhere in town you can have a food truck as written. So,
Very few places.
or very few. So, and I don't know that that was the intent. But, and I really like the idea, if it's 200 feet, and if there's a restaurant within that 200 feet, and if you get them to say they don't object, then the 200 foot is out the window. I really like that idea, because the only purpose is to protect that person, that company. And if they're willing to sign off, then problem solved.
Well, my only concern with all of this is we can make it super complicated, but I've got to administer it. So if you don't mind, just make sure that it's clear also for us working here
Oh, you'll
on
know.
what we do and do not allow. And, you know, enforcing of it isn't with the police, enforcement is with the town manager. So,
Right.
because none of, you know, they only enforce criminal acts, not civil
Lemonade
situations.
stands.
Yeah.
We support lemonade
We
stands.
support lemonade stands. All of us do.
Well, that'll be something, Ted, you'll be helping us write all these, correct?
I sure, taking building notes now.
Good deal.
So what, Ted, if you're doing that, then what questions do you have to start working through some of those that we need to fill in gaps for you?
Yeah, what are our next steps?
Well, based on my first night, defining the tiered system, redefining the amount of annual permits, redefining spaces for brick and mortar and waiver provisions, certain applications to HOA, schools, churches, special events, fleshing out the special events language, and town's permissibility to adopt those and, you know, provide more opportunities for food trucks to exist outside of our basic framework.
You know, the one thing that I like about having organizations or special town events to come is that it makes us more aware of the relationships that we have with churches and schools and organizations. To just do a blanket exception loses some of the conversation and the opportunity to build relationships. And so
They apply like everyone else does. Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's a special event. But,
Right.
But hey, the church is hosting this outreach here. You know, they're doing a trunk or treat for Halloween. We're going to have food trucks out there. We apply for this.
I would love churches to come in and be a part of that process with us so we can support them. and go from that direction.
So in
Catherine,
that case, I don't think it has to be necessarily like a count-wise, but it has to be a kind of group.
Yes.
Jeff Bell, what is his relationship with the Lions Club?
Well, he's part of, we're going to have elections tomorrow.
Oh,
So
okay.
let's just,
Wait till that's
I'll
over.
get with you after tomorrow.
Well, and, because I was going to volunteer. I know Jeff,
Well, you
Your
don't know
house?
tomorrow
we have a
night.
meeting.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna volunteer that,
I'm gonna-
but what I was gonna
I'm gonna-
volunteer was that I will be more than personally happy to reach out to the Lions Club
Okay.
and to try to get their input and feedback, because I really like the idea of a designated area. It solves so many problems, and, you know, if they're, not just the safety and everything we've already talked about, but if there's trash, you know, they can, you know, build it into their agreement with the operators. Either they're gonna clean up the parking lot, or they're gonna pay the Lions Club so that when the event's over, they clean it up. Or, you know, but
Right.
I will volunteer to contact the Lions Club, and I don't think we're gonna have it for tomorrow's meeting, but I would like to explore the possibility of using their parking lot for a designated food truck area, because I think it solves a lot of problems.
I agree.
So,
Bill, if there's a relationship between the town and the Lions Club for that, could we use some of the application fee to help supplement the Lions Club for the relationship between the town and their parking lot?
well, I mean, if your fee was excessive, you probably could, but, you know, at $60 a permit, I don't think that that's gonna buy you too much labor to clean up a parking lot.
No, I think we need to evaluate those for the tiered system, but I'm just wondering if there's a formal relationship and we can tell our food trucks, hey, you know, the Lions Club and us have a relationship.
And that's the
$25
designated
goes
area.
to the Lions Club so that they are approving of a whatever parking spot here or there.
Well, and let me ask, because I don't know, I'm just completely thinking out loud, perhaps a Boy Scout group might do cleanup as a service, and I don't know. They may already have that addressed, but I'll ask.
Okay.
You know, and do they want to charge a fee? Is that, and, you know, we issue a permit, but they still have to have the private property owners'
Right.
rules, so they may have their own rules, and I don't know if they charge or, but those are things I'm gonna ask.
So, I have my own cul-de-sac that I parked on, and I was responsible for cleanup for everyone and anyone that came there, whether it was
You were-
food truck related or not. And I was diligent because I wanted to keep the opportunity of parking there. And it would be the same with other food truck
Yes.
owners, I guarantee it. They would be willing to put up their own receptacles and pick up garbage that didn't belong to them
Exactly, I
when
think
they're
that should be
parking there.
Bill, and also liability, would that cause their insurance to be because of the liability?
Yeah,
These are
no,
all
and
things
though,
that-
that's a question that, then they would have to decide if there's an increase in cost, how do they pass that on? I mean,
Yeah,
but
right.
we'll have those conversations.
Okay.
Anybody else in the public have anything?
Okay. I don't have anything else. I think we have received a lot of, yeah, we have a lot of homework to do, but we really appreciate everyone showing up and voicing your opinion and giving your ideas and sharing your experiences. I mean, that helps us compile a lot of things, gives us more
And,
homework.
and I want to thank Terry for having, you know, the thought of, let's have a special meeting to invite input. That always has not been the case where the council necessarily cared what people thought. And so it's good to see that so many people took the opportunity to be here because we do care and we do want to be responsive. And, you know, it just isn't us making stuff up. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion carried. Do I hear? Oh, yeah. Those who say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?